when we met, I was really amazed and seeing how you're passionate about this thing, but also methodical.
You used one term called as experience consulting. What
Mhm.
is this?
20 years ago, you could afford being a generalist, if you will. And those generic skills and knowledge are really great for you. But now I think you need to have some kind of savvy in an industry or, technology tool set or something that adds that pinch of specialization.
Specialization has come into picture, but what about these salaries?
People, I think, have a lot of confusion between coaching and the mentoring. I've always positioned myself as a mentor. I don't position myself as a coach because
You as a BA need to have that mindset, that path, that roadmap where you are able to absorb everything and then put it down on a piece of table so
yeah,
that the client is able to actually make a solution or the designer is able to make a solution out of it.
I think what really unites all the BAs out there, regardless of how your job is called, whether it's function analyst or BSA or BA or system analyst.
In the world of AI, are we going to replace business analyst?
If you want to know what a business analyst does on his day-to-day life, what are the different challenges that he faces, what mistakes a BA should not be making, his career next ladder, that means what he wants to become, difference between a BA and a BSA, how can a BA use artificial intelligence in his daily routine to give his best result. If this is what you want to learn today, then you are at the right place. This podcast is for anyone who are a fresher and want to become a business analyst or grow your career within business analysis, or leaders wanting to understand how a business analyst can add value within my team or organization. Hi, my name is Afaq Kazi and our guest Sergey Shimansky, who is an awesome BA himself and a leader in this industry, and will be talking about all of these topics. He works as an associate director and at the same time he's a founder of BA Career Mentor program. So far he has mentored 33 mentees across 19 countries and has many successful testimonials. Before you dive into the podcast, do subscribe to my channel and enjoy the episode.
Hi, Sergey. How are you?
I'm good. How are you, Afaq? Hello.
I'm doing very well. Thank you. So, Sergey, it's an absolute honor to have you on the podcast today. We have got a great history of working together as some of the best BAs out there. Even if we were in different corners of the world, we share a journey at the same company across
Mhm.
different designations, departments, projects, and even countries. You are based in the US and I'm based in Canada, but we have always had that connection through our passion for business analysis. You have been in this industry for nearly 2 decades, thriving at different levels, working with variety of clients, and always focused on digital and experience. What still amazes me is your role as an associate director of experience consulting, yet you never shy away from mentoring and coaching aspiring BAs. And speaking of the mentoring, I even had a privilege of being your mentee for a time, learning firsthand how business analysis shine in experience projects. So now I have to ask you, how was your experience mentoring me? And be honest, but not too honest, okay?
I was great, Afaq. Again, as usual, great talking to you. It's a privilege for me. Thanks for inviting. Well, when we met first time, I think it was quite a few years ago, right? Working on the same company, I knew that there's a request, and I would probably just stick around, see what's going on. It'll be just a regular program. But then when we met, I was really amazed and seeing how you're passionate about this thing, but also methodical. We always had the agenda. You had the questions. You were always prepared and to the point with questions, and sometimes they were not an easy question like to answer, so a lot of challenges, but it's been a great experience. And that, I think, what is important for a mentor in this thing, right? We always talk about mentee and the value for a mentee, but for the mentor is to get more insights into the profession and maybe share the experiences that other folks may go through in this learning journey. So it's been great, and it's great now talking to you today.
Of course, it was a great time. So, to be honest, did you ever think that you and I will be sitting here today doing a podcast, spreading the BA knowledge to the world?
Well, I think it was brewing, but I did not like materialize it this way. I think what you're doing here is great, and I'm a big fan of seeing what happens. I wish you luck with this, but yeah, it's quite interesting experience for me. So let's see where it goes.
Today, it's all about one BA talking to another BA. Our chat will dive into our experiences, your wealth of knowledge that you have gathered over the years while being in the project, leading the
Mm.
teams, hiring people, and delivering the projects. But before we get into that, could you please introduce yourself and share a bit of your professional journey?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, my name is Sergey, and when I usually get to introduce myself, I usually go as simple as I'm a business analyst. I'm a BA. That's what I do. That's what I do. Like in my heart, I'm a BA at heart. And even though my job title and my jobs and even countries have changed over the years, in my 20 years, I've started with just acting as a junior BA in my home country of Belarus up to the level of associate director in an American company and working for Fortune 500 clients, I've always been doing business analysis to one extent or another. And even though right now I'm more of kind of experience design and consulting side of the house, still a lot of what I do, directly relates to the competencies of requirements analysis, elicitation, even though design wise, there's a lot of similarity in the techniques that, consultants, designers, BAs use and do. But all along the way, I was really privileged in having great leaders and mentors. And that's why, at some point in my career, a few years back, I thought, hey, I really feel like there's something I can share with with the rest of the world. And I became really serious about mentoring others. Prior to that, I had like, one-off experiences here and there, but really serious about starting like mentoring as a practice, as something I do really seriously. I only started like a few years ago, but it's been a great journey for me. And again, through working with various folks from various backgrounds and countries and industries, you see that how this world of business analysis really unites folks and unites people. And there's a lot of similarities in all of them, even though people may come from different backgrounds, industries, technology knowledge and things like that. So it's been a great journey so far. And yeah, I live now in Dallas, Texas. It's been brutally hot summer, but now it's getting cold and chilly, so I'm enjoying the fall time here.
That's interesting to know how the journey basically takes. Every duties that you do is nothing but
Mm-hmm.
closely associated to business analysis.
Mm-hmm.
You used one term called as experience consulting. What
Mm-hmm.
is this?
It's a great question. Even today, like a few hours ago, we had this almost never ending question like, what is experience consulting? Can we define this? And even though, we do have a definition in our organization where I work for, I think the simplest term would be like, if you try to mix, business analysis in essence, like elicitation requirements, understanding analysis, and then recommending something, adding the pinch of end user experience, end user centricity, if you will, to what you do, and then just wrap it all up in the digital space, then you kind of have this blend. But oftentimes, experience consulting really has applications in specific kind of engagements that we do. For example, in one project or engagement, I may act as a consulting lead running discovery. In another engagement or project, I can act as a product owner or like the product manager on an initiative where we already kind of gone through the discovery phase. Now it's more of an implementation side. Or sometimes I may act purely as a UX researcher. And that's actually what something that I'm currently doing in one of the projects where I actually go out with end users doing the ride alongs, contextual inquiries, analyzing stuff. But my business analysis background is a great asset there because to me it's natural, having conversation, running an interview, and then analyzing all the data and then putting out recommendations. So that's kind of in a nutshell. It's a relatively new profession. Like in the United States, consulting has been here forever, but now adding that pinch of digital and user experience, it's something that really adds a new flavor to it. But there you go. It's a consulting type of job, but with a strong flavor of digital user experience and business analysis in essence.
That's an interesting experience. Never heard of this term experience consulting before, but
Hmm.
since you have been doing for a long time, it looks
Hmm.
like um, there are so many different avenues for business
Hmm.
analysts to pursue their career in.
Hmm.
So, if I have to ask you, you have seen the entire world, what is the business analysis like that you did when the beginning of the career
Hmm.
versus now?
Oh yeah. Well, it's completely different, I would say. When I started, and I think a lot of folks who started where I'm from, it's Eastern Europe, where the profession of business analysis was only emerging in early 2000s. It was purely focused on requirement solicitation. And we would often work in a setup where you would purely like interview the customer maybe, but your primary outcome would be just the meeting notes and kind of some requirements structured in some format, but that would be it pretty much. A designer would be seen as someone who purely applies some visual kind of tweaks to it, but a BA would be seen as a person who sets requirements and then put together documentation for software engineering team. Whereas nowadays it's much more complex. We see I'm not even talking about emergence of AI, but technology wise, there's a lot of stuff going on. And for a BA, first, you can't afford being non-technical anymore, but also it's almost impossible to be aware of any technology out there. So you have to think about maybe a specialization. It also applies to business domain. I think 20 years ago you could afford being kind of a generalist, if you will, and those generic skills and knowledge are really great for you, but now I think you need to have some kind of savvy in an industry or a technology tool set or something that adds that pinch of specialization. That's where you bring that added value, and that will allow you to differentiate yourself from the others and the competitors. Now, what is truly important is to recognize that there are various avenues that now are more clear to BAs as far as career steps. Again, previously, the only way to advance your career was primarily to go and become a project manager. Nowadays, you can look into product management. Yes, you can look into delivery project management, solution architecture, or maybe business architecture, or like business analytics is another avenue to explore, and consulting. To me, there's just a great variety of options, if you will, career-wise, to choose from. So there's a lot of difference.
Yeah, of course. I also saw when I started to become a business analyst, I was looking into the career ladder. I thought maybe traditional way of business analysis was only to gather the requirement,
Yeah.
analyze it, document it, and then put that BRD to someone to
Hmm.
basically solutionalize it. But nowadays, I think you're right. Everybody is getting into specialization.
Right.
Either they have to get into the technological side, or they have to go into the domain side, or they have to go to the industry side. Example, very specific to insurance, maybe very
Yeah.
specific to retail.
Yeah.
So, yes, the world is changing. And I think with the introduction of the new technologies like AI, people have to keep on upgrading. So,
Yeah.
definitely. So, specialization has come into picture. But what about the salaries? What salaries is a BA making these days?
Well, I would probably disappoint but not by not answering, but it just does depend on a lot of factors, right? First, your location. Even within one country, I live in the United States, the salaries would be very much different, state by state. Even though COVID has sort of unified that in a way, people now work remotely. If not primarily, then it's at least a very common thing to see. But then we're talking about different levels, right? A salary would be absolutely different for an entry level position, mid level, lead, senior, and so on. Also, we're talking about specialization and the actual demand in the market. It's about specializations. We're not only talking about industry like insurance or healthcare, but also technology specialization. Now, we do see like a cohort of Salesforce BAs, for example. And by the way, Salesforce, or whether you're specializing in SAP or Adobe products, it's a great thing to have. So if you have an opportunity in your organization, at your job, to have some specific knowledge of a platform, of a tool, ideally, if you can get certified, go ahead and use that opportunity. It's a great asset to have. So there's a variety of things, but I'll give you a hack. I actually have done a research on this, and I've actually have a video on my YouTube channel how much does a BA make in 2024 this year. And I would love to kind of recommend, the viewers to check out on that. But there's a method I'm sharing. It is actually not so hard, especially like in country of the states, where several states actually disclosure or make you disclosure the salary information job listing to do your research. But also there are services like Levels FYI. If you're just too lazy, just go out and check out and find out the kind of average salary in a region or in a specific domain there. So there are a lot of resources to utilize in order to make a proper salary research. What I can always say is that a BA should not be seen as the kind of the lowest of a chain. I would say, right? It should not be seen as someone who's just collecting requirements and then is doing nothing, and then only developers produce value, things like that. ABA is as mandatory element of this machine that builds digital product as anyone else, even though we don't necessarily write code and produce the value that is tangible in lines of code. But yeah, that just my take on it. I have more insights and data on it on my YouTube channel and the video that I posted not so long ago. But yeah, it's not an easy answer, and especially as market goes right now, it's hard to predict. But yeah, as soon as you are aware of various tools and sources that may utilize during the research, you'll be successful.
You mentioned that BA needs to get specialization.
Yeah.
BA is not just a person gathering requirement or analyzing or documenting them. They hold a very good important position.
Mhm.
So, what are the day-to-day challenges that a BA faces
Oh yeah.
that you know about?
Oh yeah, there are many of them. Like the most typical ones, I would say, is just dealing with a number of meetings. It's, I think, problem number one where that I keep hearing all the time, and it's not only about BAs, but just due to the nature of work, BAs must have communication channels with the customer, the stakeholders, the team members, the leads. People keep pinging BAs about a question on the requirement specs, and they want to talk. But then you also need to have time to do the actual work. So handling meetings and priorities, I think to me, it's number one problem. And to that extent, even though it might sound too harsh, you have to be somewhat cynical about accepting meetings that you got invited into, but also thinking about, like, do you definitely need to have this meeting like twice and maybe even more before you schedule it? Because oftentimes meeting is not needed. But that's kind of the priority number one. Secondly, is to get responses from the customer, the stakeholders, or probably someone on your team who you rely on to get some information. I would say number three to me is dependencies and cross dependencies, or like design or other teams that might be involved in the program. And handling those dependencies is also very challenging for BAs. But to me, like, this topic of prioritization is even bigger. Sometimes I think, again, not always, but sometimes it's just up to a person. BAs, it's in their nature. They just care about things. That's kind of what I see. They care about the outcomes. They want to build the best product. They want to make sure that their artifacts are the best, and therefore they just can't help but schedule a meeting. They can't help but answer the call, answer the message. And that's why they may not realize it, but they kind of deprioritizing their own to-do list, but by helping others. And it's not necessarily the bad thing, but by doing something good, they may jeopardize their priority list. So just need to be really cautious about what's truly important, what needs to get prioritized versus something that maybe put a little bit aside. But it's challenging. It's never easy. But to me, that would be like the top ones to mention.
Yeah, according to me, in my experience as a BA, I always felt like some of the common challenges that my BAs or the
Hmm.
BAs in my team usually faces is, Agile typically says that you only have to do enough documentation. But
Hmm.
as a matter of fact, the clients or the companies are expecting a lot of documentation. Some companies
Yeah.
request you to do the entire BRD and the user stories and the UML diagrams and the
Yeah.
BPMN diagrams. So even though you are saying not enough, just enough documentation, but the BA does not get enough time to do the post requirement documentation.
Yeah.
That is one of the challenge that I've seen. The second one I've seen is the competition is so much and so tough nowadays that BA has to learn the new
Hmm.
technologies,
Yeah.
the new techniques of getting those requirements in this challenging environment on day to day. So they are able to elicit better. They are able to do their BA duties better. I have also seen that some of the clients are expecting BA to be all rounder.
Mm.
Example, you were mentioning about the project manager, the scrum master, or the product owner, sometimes even the tester. So the BA's primary responsibilities in some companies feel like
Hmm.
lost. So I felt like these are some of the challenges depending on which client,
Hmm.
which type of project, which
Hmm.
situation, which place you are in. These challenges could differ. Do you
Yeah.
agree?
Yeah, absolutely. And it also applies to the fact that, we might come from various backgrounds, and just the type of job might be different, as you just pointed out. It challenges that an in-house BA, let's say working for a non-IT company might have, would be different, or maybe slightly different from the ones that, a BA consultant might have, or, someone who acts as independent consultant or an FTE. But yeah, there's a lot of similarities though.
So, what mistakes does a
Mm.
BA make while they are in the project? Have you noted them?
Yeah, there are several of them. First would be like not listening, where they should be listening, talking more than should be listening. It's a common disease that maybe a lot of junior BAs have, or someone who's starting their career. They wanna appear smart, and I get it, but you should give a client or stakeholder an opportunity to talk, and then you really listen.
Like I'm doing
Second,
for you now?
all right. And the second is, I would say just being biased, just coming to a conversation with already have some idea in mind about how the solution should go, and kind of framing the conversation in a way that, you want the customer to agree with your point of view. And I would say maybe the third one would be not creating enough tangible artifacts. You talk about that just a few minutes ago. That some organization might be too tough on asking, hey, we need more and more and more. But we also see, BAs making a mistake of just, having a conversation, okay, now they know about something, but they don't write it down. They don't put backlog items in Jira or ADO or somewhere. And then, that means that now, the development team is unaware of some maybe important aspects of what needs to be developed. So producing tangible artifacts is always must be a priority, but sometimes, the folks seem to either neglect that or just simply forget.
Yeah, that's very true. I think the one that you mentioned, active listening, is so
Hmm.
important.
Yeah.
This is something that most of the BAs don't do. They are just listening, and then sometimes they speak too fast.
Yeah.
So that is one of the key mistake. But the other important thing that you actually said is very right, is assumptions. People are biased. They
Yeah.
have their own thought process, their experience that they're coming. But the other side that I think of in the same context is that some BAs think that this is a stupid question. There was one quote that Ali Abdal, I'm sure you know about,
Mhm.
he's one of
Mhm.
the content creators. He was mentioning that what is obvious to you can
Yeah.
be amazing to others. So, this thought process that if a BA understands that there is no question such as stupid question, you can ask. Of course, you have to ask an intelligent question, smart
Yeah.
question, something that is progressive, but you should ask. Don't shy
Yeah.
away from asking. I think
Yeah,
this is very
absolutely. And
important.
sometimes, when you feel like, am I the only one who, to whom that might not be clear? You may use like a self-deprecating humor, like, it might sound stupid, but I would still want to ask something like this. Or, hey, I'm new to this, and maybe this is something that obvious to you, but it's not to me. Would you mind helping me kind of wrap my head around this? So using some kind of techniques like that will really help you kind of ease the situation, maybe. And obviously various techniques like, just maybe checking in with some of your colleagues. If you're really shy about asking this to a client, okay, maybe you may check it with someone who you have better rapport with. But yeah, I'm with you. There are no such thing as a stupid question. Obviously, you need to do your homework, in advance, ensure that, that information has already been collected probably. But again, hoping that, the relationships and the collaboration with your customer, the stakeholder, are really professional and on par. I don't see there's a problem in asking something where, you feel that that's important. So you'd rather go ahead and ask rather than stay silent and miss something.
I have been in several meetings where there are large C-suite executives,
Yeah.
and I being one of the BAPO slash
Right.
person, there was some jargons being thrown away.
Hmm.
There was some context that was speaken
Hmm.
of, and they seem to be very simple to me to understand.
Hmm.
However, I did not still understand. What surprises me is that when I asked my manager of the client
Yeah.
who's talking,
Yeah.
even he or she did not know about what this is.
Right.
Like, I was like, am I the only one? No, this seemed to
Hmm.
be so stupid question, but
Yeah.
I'm glad I asked. A lot of people in the audience didn't know what this is. They were
Yeah.
all blank faced,
Yeah.
silent.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. And that, I think, adds also a pinch of authenticity, if you will. You don't pretend to be the smartest guy in the room. You're being yourself, and oftentimes people like it. Hey, he's real, he's natural, right? Rather than trying to pretend and and think that it's assumed, but just raising a hand, saying, hey, what's that? What does that abbreviation mean, or something? Again, you got to be smart about it. You definitely need to make sure you do your homework first, and you come to meetings prepared. But if you're really sure about the fact that you checked on something and there's still misunderstanding on your end, so probably it still makes sense to raise a hand and ask.
Definitely. So, in your experience, while you were working with different BAs, have you seen BA doing the weirdest thing within a project?
Well, it's really hard. When I've been thinking about it, is there anything in my like 20 years of experience, what was the weirdest? It hasn't been much. It's just, seeing those common mistakes, BA really taking care of more of a PM's job, just arranging meetings, doing this and doing that without necessarily, focusing on analysis and requirement solicitation and things like that. Or just, lean into designing, like lean into solutioning right away. I wouldn't mention anything that would be just weird thing in a workplace. Luckily, I haven't seen anything. I have not been around anything like that. But when you work in an organization of people, especially in a large office or like open office setting, you would see weird things here and there, but nothing that would stood out like from a BA standpoint. So
That's a good
I
thing,
would
right?
probably be disappointed here.
No, that's a very good thing. So,
Yeah.
talking about the mentoring,
Hmm.
why have you started mentoring, coaching
Yeah.
people?
Yeah, I was asking myself of this question, right? And as you know, it started as I was telling you, it started like really kind of out of nowhere. I remember it was maybe 7, 8 years ago. I was still living back in my home country, Belarus. I was in one of the meetups, BA meetups, with my friends at some point. And I remember one of the kind of activities that we had was this idea of like, it's not like speed dating, it was like speed mentoring, if you will. So there were aspiring BAs and kind of experienced BAs, and I was one of the experts there. And the idea was that through that round of interviews, they would try to match a pair of like a mentor and a mentee. And I didn't kind of go to that meetup with an idea I want to have a mentor, a mentee or someone, right? It was just like more of a fun and kind of share experience. But then through various conversations, something clicked with one of the people who then ended up mentoring actually. So we had a conversation then, and it just, again, as I said, it clicked. I like the enthusiasm, the passion, and the person was coming from a different background, really, but he was so interested in learning about this job, and that's why actually he came to that meetup. And so we started our relationships, and then what ended up happening surprisingly through, I think the program, I didn't call it program then, but within several weeks, I think it was a month and a half actually, we had conversations, we had meetings, I taught like there's Jira, there's backlog management, all the usual stuff. And what also surprised me is that that individual was able to actually apply some of the ideas of interviewing and analyzing requirements in his then job. The great thing about it that he landed a job in a company I was working for at the moment without even telling me. Without, I was like, hey, you could have at least tell me, that you were applying for it. But he kind of kept it in secret. But it ended up really well. So, and that really started that thought process in me. Like, maybe there's something I can do, because I never thought of myself as a teacher. I know it's not just my thing as I think about it, but having more like one-on-one conversations and kind of sharing my experience and kind of being real. I think it's relatively straightforward to me. It doesn't take much, if you will, right? Even though you want to really bring the best of yourself. So, kind of really long story short, and then through the opportunities I had, through internal mentoring in my organization, again, I felt more confident in my skills, and then I started thinking about it in a more serious way, and that's why, again, not so long ago, I started, working on this, side project of mine, if you will, BA Career Mentor, where not only I have a few individual courses on user stories and Jira and then discovery, but also mentoring. I do one-on-one mentoring programs, and it's a great it's a great privilege to have. Even though it takes a lot of time and energy, that's something. If I think of all my kind of educational experience and what I do, mentoring is something I always prioritize. It's always a people connection. It's always one-on-one. It's always you give everything you can to help someone advance their career journey. So it's been a great privilege. And by the way, I want to kind of set the record straight here. People, I think, have a lot of confusion between coaching and the mentoring. I've always positioned myself as a mentor. I don't position myself as a coach because, if you think about, the difference there, a coach would be someone who would be like asking you questions and leading you kind of to discover the answer. It might, maybe in the long term, that will bring you, a lot of value, but it takes a lot of time. And coaching doesn't work for everyone. Usually, for you to be successful with coaching, you already should have established yourself as a kind of solid professional, successful to some extent. Whereas mentoring really is helping to someone to get from like 0 to 1 or to get to a next level right away. And then mentor in a way acts as like, a football coach or like a football, a manager, sports, just telling exactly what you need to do, what you don't need to do, just going through specific steps and being much more prescriptive. So that, in terms of efficiency, that is much more efficient, especially if you have very specific career goals in mind. So that's something as I wanted to kind of pack into a very good question. Okay.
Absolutely, definitely. So for me, mentoring is someone or a mentor is someone who sees more talent and ability within you than you see in yourself.
Yeah.
And he or she brings it out for you. And that's exactly what your basically the mentee who you
Mhm.
mentored
Yeah.
basically applied, and you basically got everything out from him, and then he was able to apply the job himself without letting you know. That was a
Yeah.
great achievement for you. So yeah, and I also believe that when you talked about the teachers
Mhm.
are usually people who are amazing. Some people are not just teachers, they are amazing more beyond that. Maybe they
Mhm.
are coach, maybe they are mentors, but some teachers are more of a spoon feeding.
Mhm.
So when you start to spoon feed in
Mhm.
long run, it teaches nothing but the shape of the spoon,
Yeah.
right? So I believe these are some common differences that people need to understand and differentiate and get along to find what is right for them. So talking about the mentoring, continuing on that, I'm sure you have coached or mentored so many different people throughout in so many years. What is a common mistake that you have identified that
Mhm.
most of the people actually come to you for?
Yeah, I think when people come to me for advice, they may come with already kind of solution in their head. And they think like, I already know that I want to learn ABC, and that's what I want Sergey to help me with. Or oftentimes they would go with, hey, I want Sergey to help me with this. And we need to kind of take a few, maybe more than a few steps back in trying to define what you want to achieve. That's why, by the way, when I try to kind of, I call it pre-screen, if you will, to understand the ideas and aspirations of our potential future mentee, is that asking, hey, what are your career goals? Like, where are you headed? Sometimes folks don't know, and that's okay. But that's what we are to figure out. Like, what are the career goals that we need to establish in a short run in order for us then to come to the specific steps? Like, again, an example maybe, a person might be thinking that they need a CBAP. Whereas in fact they thinking that the CBAP will help them to land a job or like get promoted to a next level in their organization. So we need to kind of probably get back to this as their goal and work on this, because a certificate may help, but in the majority of cases that alone will not help. You need to really understand what your employer or the future employer might want and look for, and really double down on those skills. So things like that, just being my recommendation to all mentees would be much more open-minded about recommendations. And frankly, and luckily, I didn't have a much of kind of resistance. Usually, folks really perceptive to recommendations, but that's kind of the common mistake, is coming with a solution already in the mind, where they should be more of an open-minded.
Absolutely, I agree 100% on this. One of the mission that I am on with this podcast is
Mm-hmm.
to connect different people, unlearn, and then basically discover. So the meaning of the word unlearn is that as a
Mm-hmm.
business analyst, you don't have to be biased. You don't have to
Mm-hmm.
be coming with the same mindset or the same education or the same experience. You as a BA need to have that mindset, that path, that roadmap where you are able to absorb everything and then put it down on a piece of table so
Yeah.
that the client is able to actually make a solution, or the designer is able to make a solution out of it. So, which is such a nice thing that you have mentioned. So, great. So, how many success stories have you basically made so far?
Well, I think again, if I would kind of really speak of anyone specifically, I would probably put some put someone to a spotlight. But I really wanted to mention that the first one, Alex, who really was my first, and like to me that's like the story that probably is so close to my heart, because just it wasn't forced. I it felt like I was coming to that meetup just to kind of to spend an evening, but then I ended up having a great relationship with the mentee, who then I had to kind of really go and teach, and then that person really became successful as a BA and find his passion. Not so long ago, again, recently, I have another individual who was starting a new job, and I was helping to really get comfortable with just what's going on in the organization, what my various folks in the organization might want from that future BA. But that other BA was coming from like really into a leadership position, so that required a lot of strategy in place and how you build relationships like right away. What methods and tactics do you use? So every story is different, but what really is close to my heart is seeing success and seeing people doing the transformation within themselves. It's not often that or maybe not always, that you see significant results like right away. I wouldn't promise like immediate results right away, like in 2 weeks you get
Never.
100% salaries or something. But when people start thinking of not discovered areas and avenues within their kind of organization, probably who they need to continue building relationships with, or maybe someone who you need to probably just let it go, but then focus on something else, another project, or maybe discover a new passion in themselves. So that transformation is something that usually happens, and that really is really close to my heart.
Yeah, I think in today's world, people think life is or learning is just like YouTube shorts or Instagram reels. Just
Yeah.
within 3 seconds, you are able to learn or grasp everything. But no, business analysis is more about in depth history, the
Mhm.
mindset, the approach, the way of doing things, which is being trusted by clients, and they trust you, they provide you with that information, and it's a long term relationship. So, I agree with you. It's not an easy job, but yes, if you do it rightly, it can impact a lot of your own mindset in order to gain the insights. So, Sergey, I'll pick your brain here.
Go ahead.
The world is all about artificial intelligence,
Mm.
machine learning. So, do you think in the world of AI, are we going to replace business analysts?
Not in any foreseeable future. I'll put it this way, and here's why. As long as we continue using AI as we do today, just basically as augmenting BA functions, helping me analyze requirements, helping me write meeting notes, helping me this, helping me that. Basically, use it more like a junior BA helping me do something. I don't see any threat or issue. I do see more of advantage of using AI as a new skill for you, but not as a replacement function. However, with all that being said, if we are to talk, and I don't know what's going to be the time frame for it, maybe 10 years or what, about just completely revisiting the way we build software when we are in the area of agents, kind of that an agent is collecting requirements, an agent is building the design, and an agent is doing the solution architecture, an agent is writing code. Then maybe we talk about just a shift in the paradigm of how we build software and digital products, and therefore maybe the BA as a function as it's known today might not be seen as needed. However, I'm hoping that we as smart creatures will evolve and we'll find a way to to use it to our advantage and survive. So who knows what's going to happen? But I do see that the profession will evolve. It just I wouldn't put it that as BAs will kind of vanish away in some foreseeable future. Definitely not in the way that AI is used right now. It's more of an augmentation function. So I'm less worried about that.
Interesting. So, what is your day-to-day use of an AI
Hmm.
as a
Well,
business analyst?
yeah, those are very typical use cases. I do a lot of proofreading, and it really has helped me a lot. Though I think I'm guilty of not paying a lot of attention to what's been changed to learn better, how to write and put things to structure. So I still need to do a better job of it. But proofreading, that's for sure. Analyzing the vast variety and arrays of information. If you think about running a series of interviews and then doing maybe the recording and or doing the video recording with a transcript, then putting everything into summary. I've been using AI for that, and it's been a great asset and a great tool to utilize. Obviously, also finding contradictions and cross dependencies between various parts of the requirements and design and solution architecture. That's something that I've been using as well. Now, you also need to bear in mind, of course, the data privacy aspects to it.
100%.
Absolutely, and everything related to like the kind of the humanitarian factor, if you will. Just the being sensitive to the information that you put into AI. That's for sure. But where you feel safe and your company policy allows that, I would very much urge everyone to utilize and enjoy the benefits of this tool set. But nothing extra fancy. In the educational aspect of what I do, I utilize AI heavily, especially when it comes to the courses that I build. A lot of work that is out there that is always proofreading, just double time and triple times and quadruple times, plus everything related to just again making sure that it all makes sense end to end. So I do utilize AI a lot in that, but that's kind of a separate side of the story.
Yeah. Interestingly, fact, I also believe that AI cannot replace the actual in-person
Mm-hmm.
BA. One of the factor is there is a need of a human touch. There is a
Mm-hmm.
need of an emotional touch. There are many situations in business analysis while
Mm-hmm.
we are doing
Yeah.
it needs that curious mind, a stakeholder or a subject matter expert or the business owner may not have that kind of patience to type. Rather, they like to have that touch of a human to talk to that person and extract all the information or give that information. I believe I foresee that in future applications like
Mm-hmm.
Jira and
Mm-hmm.
Confluence will come up with AI mechanism where two people having conversation, you just feed in the minutes of meeting or a draft
Mm-hmm.
conversation, and then boom, it starts to create some
Yeah.
user stories, epic or proper format of user stories. These could accelerate the process but not entirely replace. A
Absolutely.
BA might be able to do the entire business analysis instead of
Mm-hmm.
like 2 3 months would be shortened to 1 month.
Yeah.
Multiple projects could be done in during that time. Yeah, and as you said, for teaching, mentoring, coaching, I use a lot of Chat GPT for that matter because I feel like those are some easy things to brainstorm. It's like my
Yeah.
assistance to provide
Yeah.
you with
Exactly.
quick guidance and quick verification.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe I missed out on certain things. I'm able to think of it.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think that makes completely. Everybody should have AI specific knowledge.
Yeah.
So, talking about the AI,
Mm-hmm.
do you think BAs can easily work in AI related projects or machine learning related
Mm.
projects?
I wouldn't say it's very much different from other technology related projects, right? If you really try to oversimplify it, think about it just as another technology out there that maybe, for you to get into all the weeds, yeah, it will take time, but there's something on the surface you can, relatively easily, grasp. And then obviously you're never alone working on the project. You always have more senior, maybe technology experts who you can always, ask a very specific question or refer to when needed. But I therefore don't see a lot of difference. Obviously there's some special, sauce to it, if you will, just as with other technologies and things, but I wouldn't really differentiate it a lot from everything else. There's always a use case behind everything, right? So as long as you don't focus much on the, hey, it's AI related project, but still thinking about there are people out there, who we need to have or build a solution for, and focus on their needs, then, no matter the technology, you will be successful as long as you put the customer first there.
I completely believe in such approach. And just to give my example, as I mentioned, I have been in this industry for almost 14 years. I have a privilege of working under the machine learning AI projects.
Mm-hmm.
I had some experience with the data.
Mm-hmm.
It made me easy to understand how the data is working. But when it comes to data wrangling, data processing, use case generation,
Yeah.
it was a bit challenging in the
Mm-hmm.
beginning. But I always felt like there are so many resources on YouTube, Udemy that you are able to approach and understand the use case of AI. And then don't get into the technicality of
Yeah.
it, as you mentioned, get more into the requirements, how is this going to be useful, make more business related conversation, and let the technical part to be handled by the technical people. Don't get
Yeah.
into all at the same time.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm with you. You need to capitalize on what you do best, which is, understand the use case and the business case, getting to know stakeholders, build relationships. And yeah, try not to be that guy who tries to get into the weeds of everything. Yeah, it's great if you understand how it works under the hood, and that's cool. But yeah, as long as you focus on what you do best and then have connections and relationships with other folks in your project, then again, then it'll be successful.
So, what has been the most fascinating thing about the BAs that
Hmm.
you think of or in the market?
Hmm. That's interesting. I wouldn't put, too much stress on the market there, but, as far as just what we're seeing in the industry right now is that, the business analysis as a function has been, again, as I said, I was starting 20 years ago. Business analysis was present then, but even then it had like this flavor of requirements management, requirements solicitation kind of thing. Whereas nowadays it's so specific to the industry or the domain or the type of job you're doing. But what really I enjoy seeing is that business analysis may act as this sort of a liaison, if you will, this medium through which various competencies may unite, like solution architecture and design. They usually talk when a BA comes, to either one of them, right? Or we talk about technology folks and the business folks. It's a BA who kind of would set up a meeting and kind of make sure that those two shake hands and things like that. So that open mindedness and just being genuinely curious and and proactive and focusing on results, it's I think what really unites all the BAs out there, regardless of how your job is called, whether it's function analyst or BSA or BA or system analyst, where whether it's a BA or analyst, I wouldn't care. Like I care about the essence of the job of just really stay focused on the solution and bring the best value to the customer.
I completely agree. When I started my career as a business analyst almost 14 years ago, I always had this childish mindset that okay, if the BA is a person who's not at
Mm.
all technical, who's not at all business entirely, he wears suit, blazer, tie, and
Hmm.
then he's basically talking to several people from one meeting to another meeting, from one office cabin to another office cabin. Sometimes he's in the hot area, in the canteen, in the cafeteria. At that time, I think 14 years ago, mobile was quite fascinating thing. So holding mobile, talking to people on the laptop. So those were few things that are fascinating, and still it is for me now. Until today, I feel like meetings are my core. Talking to stakeholders are my
Mm.
core. Uh, you know, building trust and confidence with them is
Hmm.
my core. And I think that fascinates me until
Yeah,
now, which
yeah.
is, if you have that passion and drive, then I think you are definitely on the right track.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And as I always say, every BA is a consultant, at heart. In a good sense, right? You don't have to be like salesy consultant, right? It's really about focusing on the client problem. And yeah, you may wear a tie, you may not wear a tie. It doesn't really matter, as long as you are out there focusing on customer problem and doing the best that you can. To gain the respect and authority to have the right to advise, and again, making sure you bring the best knowledge from your team, and making sure you focus on customer problem. Again, you'll be successful in this profession.
Yeah, thank you. You mentioned one of the terms called BSA,
Hmm.
system analyst,
Yeah.
technical BAs. So can you tell me, I mean, what is your insight about the
Mm.
difference between BSA versus BA versus technical BA versus
Yeah.
functional BA?
Yeah. I'll try to do it, but again, to me, it's much more of our what individual companies or organizations call them. Even, you may have a one person, let's say me, Sergey, in one organization, they would say, "Oh, is our typical BSA," where there another organization would say, he would fall under SA here. It's really hard to tell. But to me, I think just observing what's going on, when people say I'm a BA, they would typically consider that the individual is primarily focused on business requirements, business use cases, business functions, and as far as communication channels, the majority of the communication happens with the business users or business stakeholders. It doesn't necessarily mean the C-suite level, but someone on the business side of the house. That's kind of the whole definition, and that individual, the BA, may or may not produce tangible requirement specifications for the development team. That's another story. That's why I think some organization bring that notion of the BSA, business system analyst, where they say, yeah, those are still sort of BAs, but they're kind of oriented toward producing tangible software requirement specifications and artifacts for our development teams. And there are like those pure SAs who might speak with the stakeholders from time to time, but primarily they focus on producing more like a technical specifications, like API specifications, for example, or data specifications, data dictionaries, things like that. Again, I'm just putting that in a very simple structure. A lot of time, that's an organization that defines those roles. But if I would put it this way, I would say BAs are primarily focused on the business stakeholders and end users. BSA is somewhere in between, still sort of a BA, but producing some specs already. Whereas this system analyst will be primarily focused on how the system works, part of the system, data structure, data organization, APIs, and things like that, and working primarily with the development team.
Yeah, all right. That's interesting to know. I
Yeah.
also had the same feeling about these different people,
Mm.
different roles that people have given, but sometimes I feel like system, whenever there is a word called system involved, it might be talking about some system, either it is functional system,
Hmm.
it is a domain system, or it's a technological system.
Hmm.
But yes, I think some companies just interchangeably use these
Yeah.
terms depending on how their company organization is set up.
Yeah,
So,
and probably like product analyst, I would also add, like, in some organizations, we see there's no such a function as a business analyst, but they're product owners.
yeah.
And a sort of a level preceding a product owner would be a product analyst. So in a way, just look at the list of responsibilities. There will be, typical BA responsibilities, working with the stakeholders, putting together specs, prioritizing things around, working with various parts of the stakeholders and the team. But again, it just, maybe a nature of a company, they're called in a way like it's a product analyst. But in essence, to me, it's all like, this kind of BA community, BA world, regardless of what the job title says.
That's amazing. I think that is what a BA should be doing. Talking about the career path,
Mm,
you mentioned or you already touched a little bit on this that previously a BA could do is
yeah.
project management or product management. But in today's world, what is the career path for a BA?
Yeah. Well, first of all, what is great is that we see the fact that you don't necessarily need to change the path. You may stay and do business analysis, as long as you want. That's a great thing. So again, I wouldn't want people to see business analysis just kind of a stepping stone towards something else. Business analysis, is a profession in itself. You can live a happy professional life within it, if that's your thing. That's what I'm hoping have found for myself, right? But if you're really curious about where you may potentially move on and can advance to, there are various options. First is that kind of traditional way of thinking, project management or delivery management. Again, depending on your organization, if you're an in-house BA, that may be different from if you're working on a consulting company, but like this project management career path is something that has been around pretty much forever, so I wouldn't touch on that a lot. But second thing I want to talk about is this potential advancements to the product management. That has been something kind of emerging for like less than 10 years maybe, but now I clearly see a difference between business analysis in like in a more classical definition from product management. Even though there are a lot of similarities, when you're a product manager, there's just much more competencies that you need to have in yourself and apply to what you do. In a way, you're acting like as a CEO of a product, as someone said. So it's much more than just, putting together a backlog of things and prioritizing them. It's really owning, the go-to-market strategy, the marketing, the placement, certain aspects of technology, the dependencies, the budgeting, all that package, if you will. But there's a lot of similarities in kind of the, in what they do like on a day-to-day basis. So, if someone is interested in advancing to that career, there's obviously an opportunity, and there's a great segue to this. Then another area that I would consider is consulting. And that's where I think it's much more natural for BAs to jump into consulting because, as I always say, BA in essence is a consulting job. You always, communicate with stakeholders and folks. You use persuasion skills, and you use listening and storytelling. All these great things that any consultant would comprise of. But then, as you add that level of kind of specialization, whether it's a technology or industry or something that really adds that pinch of expertise, coupled with great interpersonal skills and consulting mindset, and just being so focused on the client's problem and solving it, that would make you a great consultant. And obviously, in between there'll be a lot of kind of intermediate steps, but I would just point out those, the product manager, the PM or DM, and a consultant, just to name a few here.
Interesting to know that there are so many different avenues for a business analyst to
Mm-hmm.
even think
Mm-hmm.
as and when the person interest grows in that area. So imagine that there is a fresher who just passed out, who just graduated,
Mm-hmm.
very interested, very talented in the field of business analysis, gets inspired by our podcast, and now thinks of getting into business analysis. So, what is your advice for him or her to get
Mm-hmm.
started as a business analyst?
Yeah, well, it's never easy to just land a first job, right? So therefore, it's really important to, while you're still kind of in college and school, to think about what are the opportunities or areas you want to explore, so you don't start fresh and like on the graduation day. You really work on this prior to the graduation day. But first of all, is just try to kind of get a sense of what's going on around you in your city or in your area, in your state, in your country. What are the meetups? They're usually free to attend. Just be around the individuals and just listen in. Right. Again, you ideally want to be there in person. Just hang out and talk, and maybe listen more than you talk. Right. Just gonna get a sense of what's happening, and just try to get the word around about yourself. And again, it's not as easy as talk about it, just to get new connections and things. But it's always, I found it easier to work with people helping you than just on your own. So if you have any connections with the industry, not necessarily leaders, but someone in the industry, that always helps. Secondly, obviously work on your resume and portfolio, and just gonna presenting yourself. So it's not just you talking, but some artifacts, some results of your work. And I do understand that, if you're freshly graduated, there's not much of, maybe zero of production experience, right? But if you are able to work on something in college, or have any pet projects or anything you can put in there that represents you as someone with analytical skills, as a team player. Ideally, if you have technology expertise, whatever it is that you learned in college, that obviously put that into your resume. And then don't be hesitant on putting something that you're not sure of. You'd rather put it in and then let the other person decide whether or not they're interested, rather than you hide it, and that might have been something important. So just work on these things. Again, I wouldn't want to sugarcoat it. It's never easy to land that first job, and it's always challenging, especially in nowadays market. But you just got to work on it. So I would recommend just working on your connections and network, just staying around the industry, working on your resume, ideally a portfolio of things that you work on. If there's nothing you can put into a resume, just create a project. There's just so much opportunities nowadays to create these pet projects, or join a community that works on something, so that you're not alone and it's easier for you. And yeah, just be around. Understand that you would not probably get a chance on the first day you start sending out the resumes, but as soon as as long as you stay persistent and consistent in that, the opportunity will arise.
That is interesting. Talking about, you touch base that certifications may not
Mm,
add that much of a
yeah.
value, but do you recommend certifications like CBAP? I don't think CBAP
Mm.
can be done by a fresher, but there are some other certifications like ECBA,
Mhm.
CCBA. I think CCBA also requires something, but ECBA, do you think this will add value to their resume?
I think in this particular case, yes, and I explain why. If you only start your career, there's not much you can kind of choose and pick from. So I'd rather use this as an opportunity to have at least like this as maybe the highlight of your resume than not
It's
to
my
have it.
passion.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. That's a thing that I'm interested in. And not only I have some courses on Coursera or Udemy on something, but I actually invested my time in gaining more of a formal qualification or certification in business analysis. So that alone would make that resume, the profile, to stand out. That's for sure. However, it would not add as much, I would say. I don't want to use the word value, but it wouldn't add a lot of kind of differentiation to someone who's already experienced in applying for a senior BA job, maybe, or lead BA job. But if you're only starting, like looking for an entry level position, that type of a certification would definitely be an asset.
Okay. So, from the experience standpoint, a person who's
Hmm.
already experienced, let's say, senior business analyst,
Yeah.
do you recommend CBAP would be a nice value add for them?
I may sound controversial here, even though I do have the CBAP certificate, and probably that's why I can easily speak on this. I wouldn't say it adds a lot of value you can measure right away. I'll explain on this. I don't believe that having a CBAP alone will land you a job. I don't believe that having a CBAP alone will land you a promotion or even a salary raise. The CBAP to me is more of a formal recognition of you as an expert. And for example, I see a benefit for me more of someone who does mentoring and education, kind of saying, hey, it's not only me saying, oh, I know something, but I do have a recognition, right? So in that sort of to that sort of extent. But I don't believe in the role of a certification as a primary source of your promotion or landing a new job. However, don't get me wrong. I'm not saying certification is wrong. Okay. It definitely helps you to get more of a system of your knowledge in your brain and your head. And maybe, get some specific knowledge in areas probably you were lacking in and everything. And talking maybe not about CBA, but other types of certification, you may get more of a specialized knowledge from that. But talking about more of a generic IIBA certifications, I do believe they provide value. I just don't agree that they alone will land you a job or land you a promotion. So there you go.
I have been a CBAP myself for a very
Hmm.
long time. I have the same understanding as yours. It doesn't help you get a job, it doesn't help you land the best of the job. But what it helps, what I believe in, is that if you have a certificate in hand, it just acts as a verified batch.
Exactly.
Okay, this person is
Exactly.
verified, he or she knows everything about the business analysis.
Hmm.
But there's a huge gap between the actual what the book says versus
Yeah.
what you do on the ground.
Yeah.
And this mentorship or this podcast that we are doing is just acting as a bridge
Yeah.
to fill that gap, that okay, the book says something and the practicality is this, and it's not wrong, but that's an encyclopedia. It has everything. It's like a Bible.
Yeah.
Babook, I think version 3.0 is more than 500 pages. And if you start to read, I typically sleep. But now I know the technique to read it. And
Yeah.
that's how I recommend others to read it. Once they know the technique to read it, it becomes very easy for them to
Mm.
grasp only the relevant
Yeah.
information that could be used for you to get
Yeah.
the work done. And I think another thing is there, as a business analyst, while you read the book, it helps you speak the jargons, the BA
Mhm.
language. That actually helps stand out, not the certification, but that language will
Yeah.
stand out. So I think that's pretty understandable. So you touched base about the interviews and the
Mhm.
resume part of it. There is one thing that I wanted to understand is the emotional intelligence.
Mhm.
As a business analyst,
Mhm.
emotional intelligence nowadays is increasing, has been a lot spoken about. And you touched one of the thing was, business analysts don't actively listen.
Yeah.
So how do you relate emotional intelligence to that, or what is your thought process on it?
Oh yeah, absolutely. It's just a, I think, critical thing to have. And unfortunately, I don't have like a tool to measure it. Like say, that's an emotional intelligent person versus not. But you kind of feel it, right? And I think a job interview specifically, when you interview someone to land a new job, that's a great opportunity for you, a potential, a future manager, to really get the sense of whether you're comfortable speaking with that individual, whether you're comfortable with them asking you a question or replying to a question. But yeah, being empathetic and just being a people smart individual is a critical thing to have, regardless of all the certificates and skills and tool sets. To me, that's a core of anything. And by the way, that's also to the notion of whether or not AI is going to replace us, right? So
Very
that's going
important.
to be a huge differentiator, that's for sure.
Definitely. For me, there has been one instance when one
Hmm.
of my project colleague uh, pointed out to me that I was not emotional intelligent
Hmm.
on a certain situation, and I didn't know what emotional intelligence is because you read,
Hmm.
you are a CBAP, you have been doing business analysis for so
Yeah.
long.
Yeah.
I had this mindset that okay, whatever I'm doing is right, and I was
Hmm.
so proactive, I was so active in it that one fine day I made a slightest of the mistake in front of the client.
Hmm.
And my colleague said, I think you need to learn a little bit about the emotional intelligence. And I was like surprised. What is this emotional intelligence? And I went down home, I read the entire Google that night, and I realized that it is such an important soft skill that you must recognize and understand and manage not just my own, but others' emotional. And if when you manage them, it is very important for you to manage the entire situation. When in pressure, when we say pressure, it is not always stressful thing, it could be happiness thing, right? So I felt like I lacked it. I learned a lot about it, and I think right now I believe I have sufficient emotional intelligence in order to manage the stakeholder, do my business analysis duties, and anything else that was required.
Yeah, absolutely. And just, the fact that just the recognition of someone else's, how they feel, how do you think they feel, maybe, just coming late in the day and asking these questions where people is already, thinking about the weekend, whether it's answering your, question about requirements or stuff. And also the fact that we're not talking about kind of suppressing how you feel. It's just at least recognizing and therefore acting to, to either kind of eliminate the stressful factor for yourself or the person who you're speaking with, or vice versa. Just recognizing how the other individual might be feeling and kind of acting accordingly, and maybe changing the tactics there. So yeah, there's a lot to it and a lot to unpack, but just being sensitive and empathetic, I think always helps. Just being human being in a conversation. Yeah, you need to write this user story. We get it, but just let's get kind of human connection there first.
So, thank you, Sergey, for the wonderful insights. Coming to the last and the most important question that I believe is what career what key career advices or lessons that you have learned in
Mhm.
your such a long career as a business analyst and where you are right now that you believe others can benefit from?
Well, as I'm thinking about it right now, I think it comes down to a lesson that came to me quite late in my career, but then really was an eye opening. Is that you gotta earn the right to advise someone, advise your client or a customer or the team on something. So earn this right first before you start advising or recommending on something. Oftentimes, it's a mistake that BAs and other professionals do. They just jump into solutioning, jump into advising, where the client like, whoa, 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 whoa. You're not there yet. In their eyes, you don't yet have an authority for recommendation. You got to work on this. And folks might think, hey, why should I work on it? But think about it. At the end of the day, you are there to have a right collaborative relationships with your customer. So you got to work on this first, and through working hard and demonstrating the value, you can earn this right to do the advice, and only then they will listen. Because oftentimes, even if you what you're saying is right, unless you have this authority in the eyes of a customer, your advice, even a great piece of advice, will be at best will be ignored. At worst, it may be used kind of against you, kind of thinking, hey, who's that individual to advise us on something. But I don't want to kind of over stress it, but just being cautious about what your role is, what's the setup, who's who, just being savvy and can understand what's going on, working hard on building your authority, and then working on the and making sure that you establish yourself before you earn the right to recommend on something. That's going to be the way they'll ensure that you're successful in a project, in your job with organization, whether you're building a career long term, or doing everything else. Just earn that right first.
All right. Thanks for the wonderful advices, Sergey. Thank you for being on this show. I today not only got an opportunity to talk to you, but learn so many different things. And every time I meet you, I get to learn something from you. I'm sure a lot of us have learned uh, great pieces of advice and great insights from you. So thank you for being on this podcast.
Absolutely. Thank you, Afaq, and thanks for having me.